It seems to me, after reading through what's been happening to schools and communities forced to live around these injecting rooms, and to be clear, the stories of parents and kids are horrific, including young children picking up needles, stepping on them, having drug addicts die next to the school. I mean, it has been just a living hell for these poor people who did not ask for this to happen to them. We have this whole new generation of children who are seeing drug use being normalised, and they're being exposed to drug culture instead of being protected. Now, is this irresponsible of governments to normalise drug use around young children?
It's very irresponsible, Ellie, and it shows that governments, both on the libertarian right and the radical left, have run up the white flag on the war on drugs. And look, you know, policing drugs, it's tough. It's not easy, but policing murder is difficult as well. And we don't, you know, we can't eradicate that completely, but we can't give up on trying to stop drug trafficking and drug use because it's harmful, particularly heroin. And the statistics they use, they claim that in Melbourne at the injecting room in Richmond that they've saved 27 lives. Those figures are very dubious. Statistically, according to Drug Free Australia, the think tank run by John Howard's former drug policy advisor, Major Brian Waters, they say statistically that figure is close to 1 life saved. Now, every life is precious, of course, but they're fudging the figures. The overdose rates and deaths in the surrounding areas haven't been affected at all by this centre. They're ineffective and they're creating all these social problems like the ones you just mentioned, which children are having to deal with because the one in Richmond is right next to a school, and they're wanting to put one in Bourke Street, and all the local businesses are there saying not in our area. We shouldn't give up on fighting the drug war. We need to keep up the fight.
Well, it's a little bit dubious because we all know, every politician knows, that there is a percentage, and a meaningful percentage when it comes to elections, of people who want to use illicit drugs, including things like heroin. And you know, it seems to me that some of these politicians have gone, you know what, we could probably get those easy votes if we start legalising drugs. Those people will vote for us when the election comes around. To hell with the health and to hell with what happens to society, at least we put back in office. Is there an element of this legalisation of drugs that's not just about how difficult it is to police them, but also about winning votes?
Yeah, I think that's right. Every election we see the legalised cannabis party run candidates pretty much everywhere right across the nation, and their vote is increasing. They're getting people into the parliament. They recently got someone elected to the upper house of the New South Wales parliament. I believe there's legalised cannabis people in the Victorian parliament as well. So they just keep turning up. Their vote keeps increasing. And I think there is a misguided element in the community, people who perhaps think somehow drugs are glamorous. They're not. Whether it's legalised cannabis, particularly heroin injecting rooms, these things, wherever you through public policy encourage the use of something that's harmful like drugs, the iron law of public policy is you get more of that. It doesn't help the problem and it doesn't help the victims. And so I think we need greater education, greater understanding of just how harmful these drugs are, particularly heroin, but also cannabis in terms of inducing psychosis, being a gateway drug to other things. So I guess my concern is that in Victoria with this medically supervised injecting room, the disappointing thing was that the argument is not about whether we should have a second one in Bourke Street. The argument is there's no discussion about whether we should have them at all, and that's where the debate should be. And I was disappointed that the Liberal Party under John Pizzuto, who seems to adopt every Labor Green policy that's going, he's given up the fight, and the Liberals are not even opposing these centres. They're just accepting that it's a fait accompli, and now it's just a case of where do you put them.
It's almost as if our virtuous and expert political class never bothered to read up on the opium wars in China and what happened to that culture with drug taking.